We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Power of How, or as we're titling it this week, The Power of How is Daniel going to get here before the end of the episode. Daniel Tirado. Well, first I'll introduce you, Brennan Tassif.
Hello.
I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm hosting this week. I think we should trade off hosting duties.
We are eventually going to start doing that. We got to get our bearings for...
Well, no, we're just figuring it out. Welcome to our experiment, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel's still figuring out how to use his alarm clock and his calendar on his phone. It's so funny, man. It is slightly confusing. We have an appointment today at 11:30, and then on Monday at 11.
Yeah,
and I just picture this guy like at home with his kids
because he's got
throwing food. He's got 2 kids and a wife with a real job, and you know, he's trying to organize. He's already got his schedule is booked.
Yeah.
And then we're also like on the side, like, hey, what about meeting?
By the way.
Yeah. And, but it'll be interesting.
I love how they have the timer now because now it's almost like an action movie.
It's like Daniel. 24.
Yeah.
You know, like he's at the Astoria, fucking,
beep.
He's at the subway stop right now and he's going to make it. How long? I think it'll take a half an hour for him to get here.
I said
once he leaves his door.
I said he'll get here when we have 20 minutes left.
Okay, yeah, we should bet. I'm gonna go 15. You're taking 20.
Yeah.
And how do we do the over under? So if it's between 15 and 20, I get it.
Yeah.
And if it's over 20, you get it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll do that.
I'm not great at betting. We did an episode of my podcast, the Full Charge Power Hour, and I had my movie reviewer Eric Wendell on the phone, and we tried to get him to the episode on the clock.
I remember.
Do you remember this one?
Yeah,
and it was so funny because he's like screaming and cursing. And
he was like in a Starbucks drive-thru or something at the time.
Yeah, because he thought it was at a different time or something. And he's yelling and screaming up until the point where he's looking for parking. And we're asking the engineer, hey, can he park in parking spot H, H8 or whatever? And he got in and he had 3 minutes to review the movie. He starts bitching about traffic. I'm like, dude, you got 3 minutes to review the movie.
Let's do it.
And he did it. He reviewed the movie.
True professional Eric Allen Wendell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I made it through Thanksgiving.
You did.
I've already told you this shit. I was kind of hoping Daniel would be here for a fresh set of ears.
But this is a very interesting situation because you spent Thanksgiving in Kentucky.
Okay, so I went to Kentucky and I had to...
Which in a million years, if anyone said, hey, where do you think Matt's going for Thanksgiving? Kentucky would never be.
No one's guessing Kentucky, but the irony of it all is like when I go there, everyone thinks I'm this city slicker.
Yeah.
Because I've lived in Los Angeles. I live in New York. I grew up in a town much smaller than Paducah, Kentucky. Much smaller, way smaller than New Orleans, Louisiana. But I get assumed as like the city guy.
Yeah, the city guy.
Mostly because I judge them for being Hicks.
Full on rednecks.
Well, I don't think that's a proper term anymore.
Oh, is it?
No.
I'm from the South, so
you're allowed to call yourself a redneck and a friend a redneck. But if you live in New York City, you can't call.
Can't say. I always forget because, and I talk to my other co-hosts for the sports show about this all the time. I go, yeah, man, sometimes I forget I'm in New York, like doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the South and I played sports my whole life. So like I'll make a joke and people are like, you can't say that. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry, guys. You
are allowed to quote Jeff Foxworthy and say you might be a redneck if there's a quid pro quo there, I think. I still don't know how to use that term. So yeah, I went in, and we probably might even have to cut a lot of this because I don't think my wife likes me talking about half this shit. But I had to go to like extensive therapy just because I spent, for those that don't know, I'm not going to assume the listeners know anything. I spent a good portion of the pandemic in New Orleans with my in-laws after I've living fucking 20 years like a slob private detective, like no rules, like it's almost to a fault sometimes. And then to go
to the point where you do have a bit where you say, like, I'm a private detective.
I don't know. I think that's Nick Griffin's gig. Or yeah, I say something like that. But anyway, Nick Griffin has a much better joke about that. But anyway, that I think I just stole. But anyway, if I went to live with my parents during the pandemic, I mean, God help me, but like they wouldn't have been in my business.
Yeah.
Like my parents pretend like they're not in my business. They probably have me on Google Alert and all that shit. But
mine are the same way.
But my wife's mother makes no facade about the fact that she wants you to live your life exactly how she tells you to live your life. And that was just a shock to me. And then we look at it in hindsight, like, yeah, pandemic. Yeah, that was a tough year. But while you're in it, you're like, when is this shit going to end?
Oh, yeah.
And she pops her head in the door. Never. This is never going to end. Because she loved having us there.
Well, and that's another thing, too, just with anything that's going on in your life. Because I'm going through it now with the breakup and trying to find a new place. And it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm never going to have. And then if you like fast forward in your head like 2 months, it's like, oh, I'll be in my own apartment doing my own thing.
Yeah.
But in the moment, like right now, I'm like, I'm going to like every 5 minutes, I'm like, I think I'm going to throw up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Living in the moment is not always fantastic.
People are always like, oh, just people. Whenever I talk to people on the phone, whether it's family or friends or something, I'm like, I'm kind of worried. They're like, well, don't, like, you're not moving till January 1st. Like, you have plenty of time. Don't even worry about it. I'm like, yeah, it's easy for you to say. Have you ever tried to find an apartment in New York City?
Yeah, no kidding. It's, and not to mention moving is one of the toughest things in the world to do. And I know this is a show about positivity, but it's so hard to find the positivity when and I've started meditating and everything, which I wanted to talk to Daniel about, but,
we got 30 minutes.
But, come on, big money, no whammies. Over 40 minutes. Come on. But what you're supposed to do is like live in the moment, walk down the street, look at the buildings, look at the other people, connect with the other people. And it works, but it's like exercise. It's that moment of getting into it and actually doing it. And like, I'm kind of a cynical guy. I'm kind of like a judgmental and even self-judgmental guy. And I'm like, is this shit really going to work? And it actually does, but it's so temporary and you have to keep coming back to it. Yeah. It's just such a battle.
Well, and you're very good because I know you can be self-judgmental, but you're also very good because you're one of the people I've leaned on through this whole thing. And every time I text you or we hang out and talk, you're very good about like, for me, you're like, Brennan, it's gonna be fine. Right. Like 2023, this is the year. Like we're gonna kill it. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make it.
Well, first of all, we're gonna kill it in 2023. Yeah. But that's only because it's we. Yeah. If it was just me, I'd be like, I don't know.
So that's how I am.
I don't know about this shit.
Right now, it's just me with the situation. And that's why I lean so heavily on like you and Daniel and stuff. Because I'm like, hey guys, about that in the moment thing.
Yeah, no, I'm so good at giving other people positivity and advice.
Oh yeah, you're very good at that.
Like Tom and Christina used to come to me all the time. And I would be living in a shack in East LA. And I would give them all this advice, and they'd be like, yeah, that's right on.
That's why you're the full star.
They went on to be fucking huge. And now I got to ask them advice on everything.
They're like, hey, guys, can I come on your show?
So I got there, though, man. Like, I coincidentally watched this movie called Stutz on Netflix. And I was on tour in Boston, and I just got in the zone. There's few moments in your life where you can just get in the zone and you're like, things are going to be cool. It's really accepting things are not going to be cool, but I'm going to be all right. Yeah. I'm not going to freak out about it. And then I had a therapy session right before going to Kentucky, and I was dreading going in a little bit just because I love these people, but it's much more hectic than I'm used to.
Yeah.
I was telling you, if I had a Thanksgiving with my family that I grew up with, that was the same as this Thanksgiving I just experienced, that I probably wouldn't talk to my parents for like 2 years, or we wouldn't bother getting together for like 2 years, because.
Well, it's also interesting. Just a side note, when you told me that, I go, because I can definitely relate with Giggles a lot in this way. I go, yeah, that's just Thanksgiving.
Right,
man.
right.
Like, what are you talking
about?
No,
that's what her sister said at one point. She's like, yeah, that's Thanksgiving. It's just stressful. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I want you to picture my Thanksgiving, my Thanksgiving with my parents, and even like my brother, and like, we need outside people for there even to be a conversation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just 4 fucking white people just eating food with no salt in it. Like now that Kristen's in the family, we finally have carbs. At Thanksgiving.
I have experienced that before with my ex-fiance. I'd go back to her place for like holidays and stuff. And it was just like a great time. And I was like, oh, everyone's just having fun, like maybe a glass of wine with dinner.
Yeah.
And then I'd take her to my house and we're like, Brennan's here, let's do shots. And she's like, what the fuck is going on?
Shots. Just like the Pilgrims. Shot. So, you know, I'm not saying my way is great either, because like my family kills the conversation in like the first 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And half of that is just shitting on the one family member that is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
Shouts out.
But yeah, last time Kristen came with my family, my wife was with my family on Thanksgiving, and she was so bored, she called her family and got involved in their Thanksgiving drama. Like threw herself in the middle of it. I'm like, you're not even there. You're going to get involved? She's like, yeah, I'm having a terrible time here. I'm like, sorry, no one's insulted you or judged you.
I was actually talking to my dad about this last night. I'm addicted to chaos.
Yeah.
And obviously being sober and in the program and everything, I try so hard not to be in those situations. Yeah. But I've always been able, the reason why I would go out so much, like, so in AA, when you come in, you get sober. If you fall off the wagon, we say you go back out. So the reason I would always go back out was because I was very good. And this is why I'm so good in the service industry, is because, and, you know, not as good, but pretty good with comedy, is because when everything's falling apart, that's when I'm like, let's fucking go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very
I do know what you mean, in the sense that, I'll tell you my version of that. First of all, I know I was in the past addicted to just bad decisions. There's this idea in life that if you jump, you will fly. Yeah. But I was jumping without dusting off my wings, just always jumping, always taking risks. And a lot of times it blew up in my face. A lot of times it worked out well. But anyway, I find that I have a tendency, and I'm getting better, to anticipate danger and hardship so often that when it happens, I just kind of even out. It neutralizes the anxiety.
Oh, I see.
And I'm like,
because you were like, I knew this.
I'm like, I can do this. This is no problem. I'm like, finally, it's here. I've been waiting for this moment all my life. I'm homeless.
That's exactly. So that's exactly what it was. Is I'd always go back out because I would get like 6 months sober, and then I'd have money in my bank account, and have a new place to live, and I'd be like, oh, I rebuilt all this in like 6 months. Like this was nothing. Right. And then I was like, I'm fine. I overreacted by getting sober, and then I'd go back out, and then. But it's weird because even in sobriety, like I face that on like at least a weekly basis, even if it's something small, like you've got the podcast scheduled and then someone doesn't show up or someone cancels. Yeah. Like in my head, I'm like, all right, like let's go. Like I had that happen a couple of weeks ago here. And so I just did a solo show in the studio, but it's like, all right, like this is what we're just going to do. Yeah. And then you're able to like adjust and do things on the fly. That's the one thing I not never understood, but that's the one thing that always confused me. And you and I have talked about this, is people who have like very stable environments and stuff. It's so healthy, but in my head, I just think that's got to be so boring.
Well, I grew up in a very stable environment.
Yeah, you did. See, I was the opposite.
I was not ready for any of this. I had to like read books about it. I was advised against this, not just being a comedian, but taking chances. Yeah. Charging something on your credit card.
By the way, check out the one-man show. Speaking of charging things on
Speaking of one-man show. Hey, podcast. Yeah. This shit's starting to stack up. We haven't even started yet.
You booked one of the episodes and I always text you like, hey man, let me get the next one so I can put it on my card.
Yeah, put it on the next one. We need a Patreon link.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's going to be an intro to this episode. Please refer to the intro where you can donate money because we're in the fucking hole already. But so I'm prepared for this trip to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Mentally prepared. And I still, every step of the way there is like, going to surgery in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Like it'll creep in my head. I'm like, I'm going into
here we go.
The fucking Stranger Things, whatever that dimension
Danger
zone. But I'm going, no, you know what? You can handle whatever. I'm not going, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going, you can handle it. Mm-hmm. It'll be fine. And I handled it totally fine.
Yeah, you said you were
pretty much enjoyed myself, even though the walls collapsed around me like a scene out of Inception. Just like, John Wick walking out of a fucking building while it explodes. My wife was getting in fights with everybody, and I was being like totally cool.
Yeah.
My wife on Thursday morning was looking for tickets to get out of there, like on Thanksgiving Day.
I was going to say Thanksgiving Thursday
And she was saying, we're not going to Louisiana. She goes, I'm not going to Louisiana on Christmas. Like she was talking, I'm done with this shit. And I was just very calmly thinking like, I was almost like, oh, we're really driving to the airport right now? Because we had to drive 2 hours from Nashville to get to this desolate place.
Oh God.
So it's like another jumping in the car for 2 hours and going to the airport, which I wasn't 100% against.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that show. Like, wow, we're really going to do what I would do?
Do you ever, I wanted to ask you
That's
this,
my shit.
Because in this situation, it's so, it's different than, because I've known you for about 10 years and it's totally different from certain situations you've been in the past in a way, but do you buy it anymore? So like in my family, like we will blow up at each other and then 30 seconds later, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And we all know that. We all understand that.
Right.
But when I have people come in from the outside, they're like, so you're just not going to talk to your twin sister anymore? And I go, oh no, we're fine. Do you buy in? If she's like, I'm looking for tickets, in your head, are you like, oh, we're leaving? Or in your head, are you like, okay, this is going to take like 30 minutes and then it's
looking for tickets is so extreme that I thought it probably wouldn't happen.
Okay.
But there was an orbit search, and there was the declaration that there was only one flight. I didn't ask any details because it's all up to her.
Yeah.
If she wants to start changing this flight, go for it. But I was just like, first of all, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're still in the basement, and she's still got to get up there, and we got to pack.
Oh, and that's an awkward situation.
And it's one of those things where everyone feels so comfortable with each other, and we're packed in a house. So much so that, and remind me to get back on track because I got to go off on a tangent here. We're packed in a house. There's over 10 people there. And the only bathroom we're supposed to use is this hallway bathroom that's just kind of like a half bath.
Yeah.
And there's no lock on the door. And so I didn't shit from like Monday till I think Thursday, like Friday.
Oh God.
I didn't shit at all. And I'm getting like more and more uncomfortable. And, it'd be just because like I sat on the John and I was like, somebody's going to walk in.
Oh, yeah.
So I can never relax again. And then since I've been home, I don't want this to be I don't want this to be a shitting podcast, but half of mental health or 85% of mental health is physical health.
Oh yeah.
And, since I've been home, it's just been a festival, and like, I'm celebrating every time. Like, I'll never take this for granted again.
You know when else that happens, and I know I talk about this on stage, but in jail. So like when I was incarcerated, there's little things you take for so much granted on the outside.
Yes.
But like and while being incarcerated, there's things like you only get 3 meals a day unless you have money on your commissary to buy more food. And I never did. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, if I'm hungry, I just can't eat. Yeah. The bathroom though, and I know I don't want to get too stuck on the bathroom stuff.
No, me neither. But we still have 3 minutes on the bathroom, I think.
But the bathroom thing is one of the biggest things.
I can imagine.
Because you're in it, like every time I've been incarcerated, you're always in dorms. So it's like, it's just like an open air dorm, and the cell itself can fit up to 3 people all the way up to like 25 people. And then there's just a bathroom in the corner. Right. So you never have privacy. The only time we ever had privacy was there was a vacant cell in a big dorm in Palm Beach County. Shouts out Gun Club when I was there. And you would take toilet paper and like 3 or 4 sheets, and you would put it in the door and then slam the door shut.
Yeah.
And that was saying occupied.
Oh, okay.
So that was
good.
as close as you got to but it's all like glass and metal. So like you're not in privacy. Yeah. So that is one big thing where once I was released, like, and I'm glad you brought it up because now it's something that like you forget about it.
Yeah.
But that was one of those things where it's like you're uncomfortable all the time. And then you have anxiety because you're incarcerated.
But it's like it's a vague underlying discomfort.
Yeah, it's just
it's not constant, like you don't feel like you have to shit. You just feel like a little unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you got a brick in your stomach.
And then you get out and then you're like, oh, I can just close the door and lock it whenever I want.
Yeah. You said that's like maybe the toughest part of prison was like more of the Curb Your Enthusiasm type thing.
It really is.
Like just being stuck with people.
Because I know that's the big romantic, and romantic might be the wrong word, but that's the big like Hollywood, like poster sized version is the fights and the sexual assault and stuff. Right. And that is a horrible thing. But from my experience, every time I would get locked up, one, being a bigger guy always helped me.
Right.
And two, and you know this, and any comic listening will know this, it's being funny.
Right.
You can get out of a lot of situations if you can make people laugh.
As referenced in the movie House Party.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know Tom even was talking to Kevin Smith about it on the show about like every time he moved, he would be the funny guy.
Right.
And that's what I learned every time I would get incarcerated was people would always kind of take a step back because they're like, well, if I mess with this guy, he's big. So, if he really knows how to fight, I'm screwed. And I don't know how to fight. Right. But that was the intimidation thing. But then always, as soon as you get in there, start cracking jokes. And then people are like, oh, okay. But it's a very Larry David situation, like, where are you going to go to the bathroom? What if you're starving at like 2 a.m, but chow isn't for another 4 hours?
Yeah.
Like all these like little things.
Right. And you're saying just being stuck with guys you didn't like.
Yeah. And that's
like one guy you didn't like that just fucked up the whole party.
Yeah. And it happens all the time. Is in our dorm, there was like 20 of us, and all of us got along, except the one guy who, you guessed it, was in there for really creepy stuff, was a super fucking creep. But everyone else was in there for like grand larceny and theft and assault. We're all playing cards together and talking shit and having a good time. Mm-hmm. And then there's the one guy who's in there for the stuff, the creepy stuff, and he's like sitting in the corner staring at everybody. And you're like, dude, you're just messing up the whole vibe in here.
Right.
It's always the one guy.
It's funny you should say that and reference Tom about that, because I don't think my life really started or my personality really formed until I figured out how to tell jokes and be funny in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
Before that, I didn't know how to like socialize or fit in.
Yeah.
And not to say I started to fit in, but at least I started to get funny.
See,
and that was like a big revelation to me.
Mine was really late. I would do attention-seeking things, but not necessarily funny things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand the funny thing because I've loved stand-up since I was like 12. But again, and I've talked about this on my podcast ad nauseum, but it was one of those things where it's like watching Tom Rhodes and Mitch Hedberg and stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Right. But then, you see someone like Dane when I was like in high school and then going into college, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to be that guy.
Right.
And it wasn't until almost like post high school into college where I realized like, oh, you don't have to like staple your arm to get attention. Like, cause I used to do that. YouTube it. Brennan Staples himself. Right. But it's like, you don't have to do
were
that.
You influenced by the Jackass crew?
100%. If I quote Bert, 100%. Mm-hmm. I used to do the dumbest stuff. And I was just like, oh, I just want to get attention.
Right.
But then it took me a lot longer than like you and Tom and probably everyone else. But then once I got older, I realized like, oh, you can get attention by making jokes. Like you don't have to staple your arm or like.
And if you notice, the thing that sets the Jackass guys apart from the average YouTuber, A, they were ahead of the game.
Oh, way ahead.
But B, they're funny as shit.
Yeah.
They're witty. And then they have writers, so they put on those costumes and shit.
Yeah.
That's the key to Jackass's success. It's almost not the stunt. It's the joke before.
It's everything around.
And all the guys like anxiously laughing.
Yeah.
And then it's the joke after they survive. There's usually a one-liner.
Oh, yeah.
From Knoxville or Chris, whatever his name is.
Chris Pontius.
Yeah. That's my shit. people don't, I always feel so silly saying this, but I used to read a magazine called Big Brother.
I was going to bring it up. Yeah.
It's a skateboard magazine that did not discuss skateboarding at all.
You knew them.
It was all jokes.
Yeah.
It was all writing. It was all articles, but like these shitty articles, which are like common now, but they would take like the most ridiculous stance on something.
It's the Onion before the Onion.
They did an article, but it was for idiots. Yeah. It was like you didn't have to have any knowledge of any political things. It was like they did an article on, does a watched pot really boil faster? And they timed it. You know, like the dumbest shit. And they had an article about how the more cheetah print you wear, the crazier you are.
Yeah.
Like ratio. So if you just have like a cheetah print tie, you're a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But if you have a cheetah print jumpsuit with a cheetah print hat, you belong in a mental institution. Yeah. And it's so funny because half the time you saw someone in public acting up, they'd have some cheetah print on them.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, those guys are so fucking smart.
They're right.
And I've never been able to get a laugh off of this, but I think it's so interesting that when people tell me they like Jackass, I start telling them I like Big Brother. And it's like I'm telling them I like the book better than the movie.
That is true. Yeah.
But it's Jackass.
I never thought about that.
I'm the intellectual that likes the book version of Jackass.
Well, that's how they got started, isn't it? Didn't like Bam or Johnny or somebody work for the magazine? Wasn't that like a whole thing?
Everybody worked for the magazine.
That's what I thought. And then
what they would do was they would make, this is back when people made skateboard videos. Now they just, I think, put like little segments on YouTube.
CKY.
Yeah, that's another one. So they made their video and that had a ton of pranks in it. And then the Big Brother guys made Big Brother videos. I actually went to the premiere of the first time really anyone, the general public, ever saw Johnny Knoxville on video was at this show called the El Rey in Los Angeles. And I used to read Big Brother regularly at that time because I worked at a movie theater that was right by the Virgin Megastore, and I would go by every day to see which new magazines were out because the movie theater was boring to work at. Between showtimes, you'd just be bored.
Yeah.
And so I'd get tons of magazines, but Big Brother was my most favorite. And I'd bring it home to the apartment complex and everybody in the apartment complex would read it.
Oh, man.
Because we would just be
It's so communal.
We'd be laughing so hard at these articles. And and for those that don't know, they had terrible articles, which are funny when you're young and horrible when you're old, about like how to kill yourself. And they give you a step-by-step on how to kill yourself. Like it was insane. It was like the dark web before. And if you're young enough to, I don't even think I would like half that shit now. But at the time it was like so fucking funny.
Yeah.
And word got out that this video premiere was going to be there. And we got there and there was like all these professional skateboarders. Spike Jones was there. Dude. We got there and we were walking inside and a limo pulls up and some skater throws a fucking 40 ounce, like half full of beer at the limo. Cause they know someone in the limo.
Yeah.
And it just bounces off the top. And this is before we even got in. And my friend Tim Conlon, maybe I shouldn't mention his name. He's a graffiti writer and he's all these graffiti writers he knew there. And they're just like robbing the bar. And then people are throwing. So we're down on the floor, but it's a music venue and people are throwing like mixed drinks in like snifters.
Like actual glass.
Yeah. Like they're just throwing it into the audience.
Oh my God.
But anyway, Johnny Knoxville gets up there on the screen and he goes, "I'm Johnny Knoxville, United States of America." And the whole place goes apeshit. So I guess I did miss this issue where it's the one where he tests self-defense equipment on him.
Oh, yeah,
and shoots himself in the chest.
That was like it
ended up being the first episode of Jackass.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and he was just going to do it for the article and not film it.
Oh.
And the editor of Big Brother was like, "Dude, you better film this shit."
So that was even a thing back then. Because like now, whenever anybody does anything, my first instinct is you're going to have a film crew there, right?
Right.
And a lot of times, especially at my level with comedy, because, I do like produce shows and bar shows and stuff, not really clubs or touring as much. And it's one of those things where it's like, no, I'm just going to like show up and I might throw my phone up. But even worst case scenario, everyone's got like a tripod in their backpack and their phone.
Yeah.
So it's like, because it's just in case something happens.
Every comic fills every set now.
Yeah.
And the booker of the show will be like, you can put your phone right here. This is where we tape from. And I'm like, hey man, I'm 48. I don't want anybody to see this.
But even back then in Big Brother, he was like, no, you're going to film it, right?
Yeah, he goes, you're going to film it, because they had a video to make. And God, think about what's lost by not filming
That's what I'm thinking of right now.
They'd still be like trying to keep that magazine alive.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's probably so many stunts that they did just to do because yeah,
there's stunts that don't even make it.
Yeah. Well, and I've had
some guys like, yeah, great. I just broke my fucking femur
for no reason.
It's not even in.
God, I couldn't imagine especially when anybody does anything now. I'm like, you can just go on an app and like find a video crew for like a few $100s. Like, why not film it?
Right.
What if something crazy happens?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too is, and you and I have talked about this, is you can get a much larger audience just because of the internet now. Mm-hmm. Like think of Big Brother with that theater and it's packed and everything, but it was just those people.
Right.
Like imagine if you threw that up on YouTube now. Well, I mean, they did. But
that's also what's great about it great about that era was, okay, only fucking
it's just for
300
us.
People saw it.
Yeah.
But then Spike Jonze, who is now like a fucking, I don't know, isn't he Oscar nominated or has an Oscar for being John Malkovich?
I think he has an Oscar, yeah.
The film is award winning, whatever it is. And then he goes to MTV and he goes, hey, I got this cheap show. It's called, we're calling it Jackass, because that's a word they used a lot in their articles.
Yeah.
And so then you can actually sell it and get paid up front.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of like vomiting out your best shit for free. We all work on spec now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The whole world does. You work for free forever, and then
hope someone
you maybe
wants
get
to buy
paid,
it.
and then you hope you get fans that will buy your extra shit.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing. It's like in my situation now, it's like I'm going to just pay for all this up front and hopefully it gets some traction, and then hopefully I can just sell tickets from this.
My friend Randy pitched it perfectly to me almost 10 years ago. He's like, nowadays you work for free and then you sell people your minor stuff.
Yeah.
But then it used to be you sell people a bunch of shit and then you give away your minor stuff.
Yeah, because we were talking about that. Like,
come on in, Daniel's here.
My apologies.
What's up,
good,
bro?
man. You made it here quick.
Yeah.
And
you made it way faster than
I was in my undies.
And Daniel, Brennan won.
I win the bet.
What was the bet?
I was betting that you couldn't be here until the clock was at 15. So I had 15. I had between 15 and 25, or 15 and 20.
And
he had everything over 20. So thank God we didn't bet anything.
Yeah, right?
Yo, I was in my underwear. I saw your text. I felt so bad.
Oh, don't worry about it.
No, we're good.
And it's so funny because he
got down here so fast.
He calls me up and he says, would you say what's the power of how are you going to get here on time?
That's how we introed the show.
I was like, man, that's perfect.
We're warming up over here.
Yeah.
Warming up. I made my wife laugh this morning, and she's like, "Don't make me laugh." Like she had a cough. Don't make me laugh. I'm like, I'm warming up. I got a podcast at 11.
That's what I was last night when I was at the showing. I was just crushing in the room, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready for tomorrow."
You got to warm up. You got to stretch out.
Yeah. I hope I'm not like disrupting any mojo.
No,
we don't care. We're off on a tangent.
Yeah, we were talking about Big Brother and Jackass.
Yeah.
Oh,
but we're just talking about how we got through our Thanksgivings.
Yeah.
Oh, how'd it go?
And then
happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for this podcast. I'm very excited about this coming year.
Yes.
And putting this podcast out.
Right.
You got that. Right.
What'd you do? Did you spend time with the family?
Yeah, it was, my mother-in-law is, my wife lost her father 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So my mother-in-law is going through a really hard time with depression. And I just want to fix this.
Yeah, let's fix this first so we don't have to have mic noise on there.
Got it.
All right. So Daniel, how was your Thanksgiving?
Well, if you must ask.
Just curious.
We're Canadian. We're Canadian, but I got to say this is a holiday that I truly, an American holiday that I really embrace. in spite of the history.
Sure.
But then again, like what holiday are we truly ever celebrating? Like Christmas isn't really Christmas.
Yeah.
Easter isn't really Easter. Halloween isn't really Halloween. So are we really going to go back to the roots of all these holidays and start complaining? Like, it is messed up, Thanksgiving. But today,
But the tradition has become nice.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a positivity
absolutely.
to the
parade and the turkey and the family.
And that's our positive take on genocide this week, folks.
That's how we spin it.
Yeah.
And it's like Christmas, three white men, you know.
Right. We declare it okay. We're fine with it. I don't know what the problem was. We were in Australia.
I don't know what the big deal
I was opening for Tom Segura in Australia, and they were driving us to the venue, and this guy was talking about their version of Columbus Day.
Right.
And he's just talking about it, and he just goes, "Get over it. Get over it. It was 300, 400 years ago."
But
and we're just sitting there like, dude, okay, we're laughing.
Right.
But we're like, dude, you can't.
Yeah.
You can move forward.
Right.
But you can't tell someone to get over
right. No, exactly.
Now that I'm learning about generational trauma too, as well, like that's a thing, like it downloads into your offspring and your trauma.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And you know what's messed up is that I think it's really messed up that we have a statue of Columbus in the heart of New York City.
Yeah, it's in Central Park. It's like triple barricaded.
It's not just it's its own thing. It's Columbus Circle.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, they also have
right. Is that where the statue is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they also have a statue in Central Park of Christopher Columbus, and it's got like 3 barricades on every side because they know people are gonna people are gonna fuck that statue up.
Yeah, but how insane is that?
It's nuts.
It's like having
a Confederate statue up.
Well, right.
I was going to say, I grew up in that environment where you're driving around and you're like, oh, yeah, that's just.
I was going to say Stalin or Hitler or literally.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And we're supposed to be the most liberal. That's what I mean about this, the hypocrisy of the whole thing. It's a big charade.
Oh,
right.
You know, and it's disgusting that we have a statue of Columbus, given the history. Given what happened, the genocide, it's insane. You know, there's this great book called what's it called? It's a history book written by a war veteran.
It's a famous book, right? It's almost like the real history of the United States
people,
or something.
Through the people.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What's it called?
We'll plug it up front on the intro.
Right.
I can't think of it right now. Yeah.
A people's history.
There you go.
A people's history of whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I've never read it, but
I read it.
But it's tell me then.
Man, it's insane. Like they were in search of gold and spices and all that stuff, and they couldn't find anything. Mm-hmm. So Columbus was like, well, I can't go back empty-handed.
Right.
So let's just bring back slaves. Mm-hmm. And then I believe, if I could be mistaken, don't quote me on this, but I believe I think 1 out of 9 would survive. Some would
on the boat trip.
On the boat trip.
Yeah,
because it's weeks.
Yeah,
and they're in cages.
Yeah,
and they would commit suicide. They would die. They would. Man, and it's like, nuts. And this is the statue in the heart of Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. It's really,
and there's still controvery over it too.
Right,
there's still pushback on this.
Well, I think wasn't there like?
In fact, we just lost half our listeners.
But we gained a new half.
That's right. We doubled up.
There you go. Positivity.
Right on.
There you go.
Until we say the wrong thing.
Right.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because there's a book by Dr. McPherson. Because when my minor was American history, it was the emphasis on the Civil War. So we'd read all these books, and Dr. McPherson has a ton of books on the Civil War. There's one called Free Soil, Free Labor, Free Men, and it's literally letters that soldiers wrote during the Civil War. And it's so fascinating when people try to stand on like the states' rights, free trade argument, that's why the Civil War was fought. And you can just read a couple of pages in this book, and it's literally soldiers like, I can't believe they're trying to take our slaves. Like, we're not going to let them do that. And it's like, that's why it was like,
those are the foot soldiers that don't own.
Yeah. And these are the people, like, it's like, you can read it straight from the horse's mouth, like what it was fought over. But then people still, especially in the South where I'm from, they want to stand on this whole, like, no, it's heritage, not hate. It's this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, you can actually read what they wrote back then, and it's all hate. It's just hate.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
So your Thanksgiving was good.
yeah.
Yeah, right. At least
But it is a moment to like really spend time with family and it's nice, because it's Christmas without the gifts.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to
Oh
put
man,
it.
don't remind me.
You know what I mean?
I got to buy gifts.
Right.
I forgot about that.
I bought all my gifts the day before for my Thanksgiving. I woke up, made cinnamon rolls, we watched the parade, and then we broke up about 12 hours later. So that was my
Awesome.
Thanksgiving.
That's
But,
beautiful.
Really?
yeah. But
You knew you were going to break up.
we kind of had an inkling
So you
that it
knew
was
this
working.
Space giving.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, but it's still like a weird timing thing. But I had bought, because a couple weeks ago we were like, oh, let's try to work it out. And so I had bought like all these gifts like, early. I was like, I'll do it early.
Right. Yeah.
And then that happens on Thanksgiving. And luckily nothing had shipped yet. So I just sent an email. I was like, hey, cancel all those gifts.
I was gonna say, you said you like you swiped right well on Tinder or something. Are you talking to somebody new?
Yeah,
you could blow her mind on Christmas.
I know. Like, oh my God, I didn't think about that.
Keep it for the next one, right?
Yeah. Hey, I got you all this stuff. I mean, jewelry is universal.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I have a very good was I a dick about this, though.
Okay, but I just want to throw in, he's got a hot lead on an apartment. I don't want to jinx it.
No, yeah.
Can I tell him?
Yeah. That's
So he's looking at an apartment.
Was I a dick, yeah.
He's looking at an apartment. Okay, good.
Where is it?
Yeah, set it up.
It's on 101st.
101st in Lexington, yeah.
But what's so great about it is, two of his roommates would be flight attendants, right?
Yeah.
Which means
They're never there.
A, they're never there, and B, he's going to get discounts eventually on fucking flights. I used to have a friend who worked at the airport. He was on my old podcast. His name is Eric Wendell, and he would hook me up with these companion passes, and they were just like a $55 fee. You fly standby, but still
$55.
Dude. Yeah.
It was one of those situations where it was weird because I was in a panic, and that's actually, I was talking to Matt the other day, but I was like, Daniel's got to be there because you're our very like live in the moment kind of guy.
It's all BS, man. It's all an act for the
live in the moment till you get the phone call. You're late.
But that was the thing was, so like I've already paid rent for December, so I was kind of in a panic about what I was going to do for January. So I like set up all these viewings and everything like that, and I was like freaking out about where I was going to live. And then literally the very first showing, I show up and the woman is like, yeah, I guess I'll be your random roommate. She's so sweet, super nice. And then she's like, yeah, I also work for Delta. And I was like, what? 'Cause Matt and I literally the day before were talking about this. And then I went to another viewing at a building. I was like, I have no business living in this building.
Right.
But then the price was great. And they were like, yeah, we actually need someone to move in. Like, as long as you give them all your information. Both of them are flight attendants. And I was like, what is happening? Because I was in such an anxious panic. And then I was like, oh, everything's working out ASAP.
But you know what? I think that's that's amazing. It's such a puzzle.
Yeah.
The whole thing,
Yeah.
And sometimes
Go ahead. No, please.
I was going to say, sometimes we think, things are never going to go our way. I have a really fun story, man. I used to work cruise ships before I got fired. And,
I'm listening.
That's another story. But I met a comic, a really great guy, like, man, heart of gold, Keith Bender. He told me I was going through a really rough time. Financially, really rough time. I had one kid. I was another kid coming along, and I was just down. And he said, "Danny, you got to say something to yourself." He had like this incantation or mantra that when he told me this, I laughed it off. I thought it was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he said, "You have to tell yourself." And I do this all the time. He said. I love money, and it comes to me easily. I know. That's exactly how I felt. I said, this is the stupidest shit. I was like, Keith, there's no way. And I started laughing exactly the way, and he said, Danny, I just started saying I love money, and it comes to me easily. I know. So then he said, just trust me and just start saying that. And start believing it. I said, this is silly. This is, it's a little bit like that story I had about with Tony Robbins. You know how silly that was. So then he says, listen, I've been doing it for months now, and he says, I don't know where the money's coming from.
It's just coming,
but it's raining.
It's coming as in the sky.
Yeah. And then I said, all right, you know what? I got to lose.
Right. No one's going to hear you say it.
Well, no. He says, say it out out.
Yeah.
Have people hear it. Like, who gives a shit?
Put it in the universe, man.
So, like, when you have that trust, that confidence, you're just taking a walk, you're like, I love money, and it comes to me easily. And there's something about voicing it so that another person, a stranger especially, can hear it. When you have that level of confidence and level of fearlessness, it's impactful. So I started doing for the fun of it. I was in the shower. I was like, I love money. Love money comes to me easy. And then I would start. I got a tune. I got like a little song came like, I love money and it comes to me easy. I love money and it comes to me easy. And I would walk. I would cook. I would say it. And moments like things that I didn't book, things that I didn't try to get. I would have like suddenly out of nowhere, like corporates would start coming in, one after another, and this is during COVID when nothing was coming.
Wow,
like nothing was coming.
That's wild.
And I had in 1 month, I had what I would usually make in a year doing comedy.
Yeah,
nice.
And it was just. And I believe this.
Yeah.
I believe it now.
Right.
I believe it. It was because and thanks to saying, and it could be anything.
Right. Well, let's all say it right now in front of our 800 listeners. Woo! I love money and it comes to me easily. Woo! And I'm saying a real missed opportunity here. This should be the title of our podcast, and we would get 8 billion downloads because people love money.
Well, that's the whole,
and it doesn't come easily.
But you know what's
to them
crazy?
To them, to us, it does.
I would tell this to a few friends or different people. And some people have this very negative association with money.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't say that. And people really believe that. They think it's evil. It's an evil thing.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not good. And it's not bad.
It's a lubrication for life.
It's like what you do with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a pencil. You can write with it, or you can stab someone in the throat with it. It's what you do with it.
That's why they call it a number 2 pencil.
There you go.
Well, that's the big thing and the secret. And Daniel, I know you know that. The secret, it's the abundance of wealth. Like, to spend money like you have an abundance of wealth. And I thought, and I know we talked about this before, but I thought the secret was kind of silly. And then my ex had me read it, and then she would just buy random things for the house. And I go, how much was that? She goes, I have an abundance of wealth. I don't even care. and then, but I say that to say, and then we break up, and she goes, yeah, I can handle the rent by myself. And I was like, you really do have an abundance of wealth.
Right.
And I know I say it, I adopted that whole abundance of wealth mantra when we moved to New York, because I was like, it's all going to work out. Like, it's going to be fun.
That I totally believe in.
Well, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I know. Isn't that
weird? Speaking it into the universe. And that's the same thing with the roommates.
It is a trust, because I've been so many times where I don't have rent the next month. I'm in a situation like that right now. Like, I don't have work on the calendar after the 8th of January. But I know it's coming because I've been in this situation so many times before. Yeah. And I remember one time I had no work in June. This is just like what you were talking about. And all of a sudden I was going to make 40 grand in June. Do you know what I mean? One phone call. I'm sitting at Hooters drinking a fucking shot and a beer like a total fucking incel in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And it's at a gig where I showed up. It's like a 7-day gig. And the guy goes, yeah, you're not going to do well here. And I was like, why did you fucking book me? Because I want to show you what it's like, city boy. God. Like, it was this whole attitude, you know?
And go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I was going to say that's the same thing with me was, a week ago I was in a panic. Like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I was just like, it's going to be fine. Like, it's going to work out. And then you and I talked about it. We put it out in the universe. Right. And then within 2 days, I was like, oh, I've got like 4 different places that I can apply to.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're all awesome. Like, one of them's in a building where I was like, I have no business living in here. Like, there's a doorman and stuff.
Yeah. And since it wasn't my problem, I knew it would work out for you. And that's what I told you. I give people great advice all the time. Then I go home and shiver from fear.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's always easier to give advice than to take it, than to find it. Right. I mean, but yeah, I think that's the big difference between hope and faith. And a lot of religious people talk about hope and faith, but I think they're literally opposites. Because hope, you're walking on eggshells. There's that tension. You never know. You just hope. You just
fingers
hope.
crossed.
But faith, it's like
it is going to work.
It's a sense of trust. It's exactly it's that scene in Indiana Jones. When he takes a step and he takes that leap of faith. And there's a knowing. You don't see it. You have no clue, but you just know it's going to be okay. And whenever I'm in those fearful moments or moments of doubt, to just reconnect to that trust, that faith, and again, not so much in religious terms, or in a religious sense, even though if that works for you, then by all means, use it.
Right.
But to me, it's like a knowing that a trust that everything's going to be okay. It's such a beautiful feeling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, and this is why I was telling Matt, I was like, this is why I love doing this show, is because the last couple of days I've been all in my head, and then I come in here and I was like, oh yeah, it is going to work. Like everything's fine.
And I think, and I just saw this in this movie, Stutz. I think everybody faces uncertainty. We have more uncertainty in our lives, but these people with steady jobs and shit, they could lose them like that. Yeah. And they're not equipped to find another job just like that. We're used to it. We're like,
around.
Beep, beep, beep. We're like the Terminator vision, like money.
Right. Yeah.
$1,800.
I tell people all the time, what?
200.
All right, we'll take these 3 200s and that 1,800.
Right.
We should be good for the month.
Yeah.
People at work all the time are always like, yeah, but what happens if you lose this? Like my guest will be like, oh, so do you really like what happens if, something happens with this job? And I was like, I get another, I'm confused. Why are you confused?
Right.
Like, then I go to another Prime Steakhouse and get a job. It's not that hard.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw that Jim Carrey documentary.
Well, I saw the speech that he gave.
Where he talks about how his dad wanted to be an entertainer, and and his dad took a safe job.
Accounting.
But then he lost the safe job. So Jim Carrey's take was, well, even if you play it safe, you can still lose.
You can still lose.
So you might as well do what you want.
Yeah, and so much of it is your mindset. Like, I was late. This never happens. I don't know why it happened, but I've been going through some things in my head, and I apologize.
Oh, it's fine, man.
We're good.
But I'm really sorry. And I was in the subway, and I was like, you know what? I could beat myself up over this. And I started to really think, you know what? No. This was supposed to happen. Like, you guys are supposed to have your moment, and you're supposed to talk about whatever you're going to talk about, and I'm going to come when the time's right.
Yeah.
And I trusted that it's going to work out.
Well, we needed you here because we got off on this fucking tangent.
Yeah.
On Jackass. And I mean, you showed up just at the right time is what I mean.
Right.
You were right.
It was almost perfect.
And what it did for me was it took me out of my head and out of my notes. And now there's something, it's like when you're doing a stand-up show and something weird happens, you're able to be in the moment more and be more alive and crack jokes and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas, and we're used to uncertainty. I was thinking about this earlier. We're used to uncertainty in our profession too, when we're actually doing the job.
Yeah.
Because how many times have you walk on stage and a waiter drops a whole fucking thing of drinks, or somebody's just yelling at you, or this is happening. That's why Chris Rock didn't freak out when he got slapped. Something happens every show. Do you see him? He was just like
every show.
Went, whoa, and then he just started talking about it. Like a lot of people would have ran off stage. Not a stand-up comedian.
Right. Yeah. Yo, that's a great, great, beautiful
We're so
used to it.
Getting up there.
Yeah. He's like, all right, I guess I'm going to introduce this thing. Because Chris still knows. He's able to slow it all down like a spidey sense.
Right.
And be like, we still need to give this award to Questlove.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This still has to happen. Well, it's the same thing like when we get on stage. It's like, I have to fill the time. Doesn't, we still have to do the thing. Yeah. So it's it doesn't matter. It's weird to see it from an outside perspective, like the Chris Rock thing. Cause I was at a show once and a comic we all know got up and didn't even said, "Hey, I'm so-and-so." And right as he said that, someone in the back was like, "Be funny." Yeah. And he was like, "I just got up here." We still have 14 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And
I
just
did.
went.
I did the show in Atlantic City. I was opening up for Daniel Tosh, and the crowd was jacked and fucking drunk. And I got up there and I'm like, "What's up, everybody?" And some guy just goes, "Get to the funny, motherfucker!" And I was like, dude.
Right.
I was like, I didn't even finish the first sentence.
Right.
Give me till the third sentence.
Right.
Those are the rules.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm really thankful, man, for this. Not to sound corny, but this is like, listen, I never wanted to do a podcast. Like, I think it's so sad what's happening with comedy now, that, you know, with social media, TikTok, Instagram taking over, where kids can headline comedy clubs with no experience but millions of followers, and clubs will book them. And you know, if I wanted to be, because I see a lot podcasting a lot as being a radio host.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel the same way.
That's what I
We used
wanted
to talk so much shit about radio.
Yeah, and if that's what I wanted to do, if that was my vocation, if that was my livelihood, if that was my love, I would have gotten into that.
Yeah.
But it never was. It never interested me. Like, it's, you know what I mean? And yet, when you guys came along and we spoke first, and then you spoke to me about being three together and doing this, and then you guys communicated on making it happen. I was like, you know what? I was like, you know, just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Like, don't question it.
Right.
Don't, why is this coming to me now?
Yeah.
And instead of like resisting it, and we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
And as soon as I met you, I liked you.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and then I said, just trust it, that it's coming now for whatever reason, and that it's good.
Yeah.
I told Matt after we met each other the first time, Matt goes, "So what do you think of Daniel?" And I go, "He's definitely someone I need in my life, because I'm so aggressive and like so." I was like, he's like chill and like just everything's gonna be cool, man. And I was like, I could see where we would butt heads on certain things, but I need that person in my life. And it's so interesting how we talked about faith and the timing of things, that we start this podcast and literally within a month, like my relationship ends, like the one-man show is coming out, like there's all these stressors that are happening.
You're doing a cleansing right now.
And then now I've got these two people in my life where it's like, oh, but it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the timing couldn't have been better, because had I not had this and everything was going on, like I'm sure there's certain things that could have, the way they broke, I'd be back. I would have just been like, screw it, pushed my chips on the table and gone back to Florida.
Right.
But because of everything happening in the exact order that it happened, I was like, well, I'm not leaving New York. Like, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been such, like you said, the faith of like, oh, it's going to work out.
And it's funny that a lot of people see me as this really chill and like easygoing and laid back, but I'm, you know, my family knows me very well. And, you know, although I may appear like that, many times I'm like a dormant volcano. Not that I'm going to explode, but there's a lot going on inside of me, you know, and it's not as transparent as it appears, and there's a lot of work behind this, I guess. But I go through a lot of the stuff that you guys go through, and we all go through. You know, it's.
How's your blood pressure? Seriously, are you on medication, or do you have like good blood pressure?
No medication. Never check my blood pressure. I just eat well, and I really believe in self-awareness. Mm-hmm. I know when I'm losing it. I know if it's not. It's like that scene in American History X when he tells Ed Norton. He says in jail. He says, whatever you did it serve you? Was it helpful? Yeah. To this point. And many times I catch myself saying, like, whatever I'm doing right now, why am I feeling like this? And is it serving me? You know?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about something, because that's the scene with Guy Torry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a scene where he smells the underwear. He goes, I
don't remember that.
He smells the underwear. And it's like dude's underwear, obviously. And he goes, it smells like, women's parts. It reminds me of women's parts. And that's like, somewhat homosexual. And then I was in a green room one time with Guy Torrey, and I said something about, like, he was talking about sex with him, and I referenced, for some reason, I can't remember what, I referenced him masturbating. Like I threw a joke in there, like, yeah, that's like, no, this is like in a green room with the actual actor, Guy Torrey.
Okay.
And he's talking about sex, and I'm like, yeah, that's like, well, maybe you should just jerk off to it or something like that. Something that's not exactly it, but I referenced him jerking off, and I didn't know him, and he looked at me like he wanted to kill me. like I don't joke that way, dude. It's like, and then I saw American History X. I'm like, dude, you sniffing men's underwear. You got to be less sensitive than that.
That's funny. Yeah.
Maybe he's just been made fun of so much after that.
Maybe.
That he was like, fuck you, man. I'm not talking about that. No, but I feel the same way about podcasts. I did podcasts on a whim like 10 years ago, and I couldn't believe just how much it took over the business. And that makes me sad in a way with all the social media, because I do feel like stand-up comedy isn't as good because people just used to put all their time into the stand-up comedy act, and now it's the most secondary thing on the planet.
You got to be an editor.
I don't know how people spend so much time doing that. On the other hand, I love talking to you guys. I love having someplace to go. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad we got this studio. It's worth the credit card debt we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Because like I love waking up in the morning and having someplace to go. And that's just like a huge deal. Not to mention it's in Manhattan. Yeah. So I feel like I'm like living the life
in the big city.
All of a sudden.
It's always so cool when I tell people where I record, and they're always like, "Where's that?" I go, "Midtown Manhattan, baby."
Right.
Yeah. So what was the Was I a Dick?
Okay, so we're coming up on the hour, but I want to throw this out
we're done. Shit.
Just real quick. So I was looking at an apartment with a random roommate. She's not from New York, never lived in New York, was kind of weary about getting an apartment in New York. And then we looked at this place. Now, I've looked at over 100 apartments, obviously, before we moved here, Savannah and I, and then now. And I told her, and this is where Was I a Dick? I was like impressing upon her, like, this is a great spot. It's in Upper East Side. It has a washer dryer in unit. It has an outdoor private patio. I was like, for the price, like, you need to get this apartment.
Yeah.
So was I a dick by being like, hey, like, forget anything else. Like, we have to fill out this application.
Who were you talking to in the beginning?
This was the random roommate.
Oh, okay.
So she's never lived in New York before. So I was very pushy about like, no, this is the spot. But that's only because I've looked at like so many apartments. But was I a dick for being
no.
Yeah.
You're the expert. She's the novice.
Okay. So
that's all there is to it. And she can say no.
Yeah.
It's not like you're calling her twice a day being like, sign the goddamn papers or whatever.
Because I felt kind of bad afterwards. I was like, I was really pushy about that. But in my head, I was like, but I know. Like, she's only looked at 2 apartments in the city. I was like, I know this is a great spot.
Yeah, no, you know she doesn't.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Cool.
The only thing I would say, it's never what you say, but it's the energy behind it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so
I think she could feel my enthusiasm. Like, no, this is.
So if I would say you were a dick, if you like, you had that negative energy and you're like, no, this is it. Or if you said, no, this is it. You know what I mean? That's like you're saying 2 different things.
I was super
like
excited.
If you're like,
and only you know the answer to that, right?
Like
we don't have to know.
You're Philip Seymour Hoffman in that Punch Drunk.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like, sign it. Sign it, Jennifer. Sign it. That's going to do it for The Power of How, episode 3.
Thank you guys. Thanks.
Say it with me. I love money and it comes to me easily. See you at the bank, bitches.
That's fun.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado, artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.